When we think about evidence-informed policymaking, we sort of drive the point that when it comes to policymaking or decisions that affect communities, the evidence is a critical component to inform these decisions so that communities and populations can benefit.
Our leaders now are demanding for data and evidence. In the past, they were not that familiar, but increasingly now over the years, we've seen a kind of increasing demand from our leaders, from the decision makers to know at least what exists. We are also improving our capacities on the continent to produce data and to produce new knowledge. And the question now, or the challenge that we are having, is how do we make sure that that demand and the supply actually match?
LEEPS is about advancing evidence and equity. So sometimes you are likely to push for evidence, but then forget equity, yet it's very critical. If somebody told me that there is 35% use of family planning in Kenya, what would be my course of action? What would be my policy intervention if I don't understand the gender dynamics? So as we look at a broader picture of maternal mortality, of maternal health, you realize that there are some underlying issues that sometimes we ignore. And it's very important that we pay attention to the gender issues and make sure that everybody is included. So when you're talking about SDGs and saying leaving no one behind, then this is what we are talking about.
When you look into the actors that are involved in this partnership, we have researchers that are very specialized. They know their fields, they know the context. We have Anglophone countries, Francophone countries that are in this partnership, East Africa, West Africa coming together in this partnership. Each of them is bringing its perspective from their own context. We are trying to have something bigger that will resonate and that will help to push the evidence-informed decision making at the continent.
We are talking about ecosystem. And when we talk about ecosystem, we are referring to different stakeholders. And when you look at our different countries, we have many stakeholders working on different aspects of the EIP, of the evidence-informed policy-making cycle. Some are working on production, some are working on brokerage, some are working on utilization. We even have some who are just specializing, for example, capacity building. So when you come to that point, the ecosystem should function. And for the ecosystem to function, you need people to share knowledge, to share learning. If something that has been already done in Mali or in Senegal, you could do the same thing in Benin or Cote d'Ivoire, and we are actively supporting those communities of practice.
LEEPS gave us the opportunity to sort of explore our thinking beyond what we were. Not to just say we are talking to guys in Ethiopia, in Tanzania, but working with them directly and be able to support them. When we have the capacity building trainings, I don't have to struggle so much to think who is going to train. I just have to make a phone call and ask someone in Ethiopia.
Being part of these trainings and capacity building activities, I was able to observe that the trainees, and mainly from the ministries, were so interested and picking and following to make sure that they understand how this evidence is developed and how do you synthesize, how do you appraise, and for me that spoke a lot that they were able to pick that interest.
We are now having a space where different organizations working on evidence-informed policy making are talking to each other. And we are moving gradually from competition to more collaboration, which is very useful and very innovative for the continent. We are now talking about how we can come to a point where we can start harmonizing our different tools, our different approaches, so that when we talk about evidence-informed policymaking at the African level, we are talking with the same voice, we are talking with similarly the same approaches, and we are also exchanging knowledge, learning among ourselves.
To see the conversations that are going on here and the passion of the policymakers that were in the EPA, for example. The conversations were really vibrant and energetic. There were a lot of lessons to pick from that we will draw on.
It has been wonderful, especially with the conference as well, meeting so many people who are so passionate about using evidence, and the issues that we have talked about in terms of how do we advance this, how do we overcome the challenges in terms of making sure that evidence informs policy.
We have all the funders present. We have the different hubs, the different teams that are working in this partnership, all of them together in the same room, having the opportunity to sit together, to shake hands, to talk face to face, is something that adds real value.
We are coming together as a coalition to move the field forward and to make sure that decision makers are understanding what we are doing and they are taking up what evidence-informed policymaking should be in our countries.